Imagine a silent hallway where every footstep echoes like a warning. The air smells of disinfectant and fear. Behind the towering concrete walls of South Korea's high-security prisons lies a world few outsiders have ever witnessed. A world of rigid discipline, relentless surveillance, and punishment so severe that former inmates still struggle to talk about them. This isn't a movie set or a forgotten relic of the past. These prisons are operating right now, enforcing a system of control that shocks even seasoned human rights observers. First glimpse of the system. South Korea, a nation celebrated for technology, K-pop, and economic success, hides a stark contrast in its penal system. While the streets of Seoul buzz with neon lights and innovation, the country's prisons run on an old philosophy: order above all else. Every rule is designed to crush defiance and maintain absolute discipline. Guards patrol in precise formation. Doors slam shut with a metallic finality that reminds every prisoner there is no escape, not even in thought. A culture of silence. Inside these walls, silence isn't just preferred, it's enforced. Conversations above a whisper can lead to punishment. Prisoners describe entire days passing in eerie quiet, broken only by the sharp commands of officers or the clanging of steel doors. New inmates quickly learn the unwritten code, obey instantly, never question authority, and speak only when spoken to. Breaking this code means facing the dreaded disciplinary cell, a place that has become a symbol of fear. History behind the harshness. To understand these prisons, you need to look back. Korea's penal philosophy grew out of decades of military rule and a cultural emphasis on hierarchy and respect. The idea is simple but brutal. Strict control creates order, and order prevents chaos. Over time, that belief has created a prison culture where rehabilitation often takes a back seat to punishment. Critics argue that while South Korea has modernized in almost every way, its prison practices still reflect an older, harsher era. The environment of total control. From the moment a prisoner enters, the system claims every aspect of life. Inmates are given a number, stripping away identity. Cells are spotless but stark. Bare walls, thin mats, and minimal personal belongings. Each action, from eating to sleeping to even standing, is regulated by the minute. Cameras monitor movements 24/7. Guards document every infraction, no matter how small. Even a misplaced glance can be written up as disobedience. Why it stands out globally. Many countries have strict prisons, but what sets South Korea apart is the combination of high-tech surveillance and old-world discipline. International watchdogs have reported cases of solitary confinement lasting weeks, sometimes months, which experts call psychological torture. Stories of forced labor, where prisoners work long hours sewing uniforms or cleaning without proper breaks, continue to surface. Yet, despite these reports, change has been slow. A warning before we go deeper. This is only the beginning of what happens behind those walls. The most shocking punishments are still to come, penalties designed not just to discipline bodies, but to break spirits. In the next chapter, we'll step deeper into the daily grind of a South Korean prison and uncover how inmates survive a routine built to crush the human will. Life inside a South Korean prison runs with the precision of a military base. The day begins before sunrise, often around 5:30 a.m., when a loud buzzer pierces the quiet. Inmates must immediately rise, fold their thin sleeping mats with exact edges, and stand at attention for roll call. Every action, washing up, eating, working, is scheduled to the minute. A single delay can lead to a written violation, which may bring extra labor duty or a trip to the dreaded disciplinary cell. Meals of silence and discipline. Breakfast is served in a stark dining hall where talking is discouraged. Bowls of rice, kimchi, and a simple soup make up the meal. Guards pace the room while prisoners eat quickly and in silence. Any food left uneaten must be explained. The same ritual repeats for lunch and dinner. While the food is generally adequate, the psychological effect of silent, timed meals reinforces the message. Control over mind and body belongs to the institution. Work that breaks the body. After breakfast, many prisoners are assigned to labor. Some sew prison uniforms, assemble small electronics, or clean vast corridors. Others work in laundry facilities, scrubbing for hours. The tasks are repetitive and physically draining, with strict quotas to meet. Falling behind can mean loss of meager privileges, like a brief phone call home, or worse, solitary confinement. Though labeled rehabilitation, former inmates describe it as punishment disguised as work. Relentless surveillance. Every hallway, workshop, and common area is watched by high-definition cameras. Guards perform surprise inspections of cells, searching for contraband or forbidden notes. Even in the rare moments of rest, prisoners know their every movement is recorded. This constant observation creates a tension that never eases. Former prisoners speak of the exhaustion of always being watched, a pressure that erodes mental health over time. Rules for every breath. Something as small as a whispered conversation or an unapproved glance can bring reprimand. Posture is regulated. Sitting with legs stretched out is often forbidden. Letters sent to family must pass through censors, and phone calls are strictly limited and monitored. Inmates must bow slightly to guards as a sign of respect, and failure to do so is considered defiance. The psychological toll. While physical violence is less common today than in past decades, the psychological weight of constant control can be crushing. Prisoners describe feeling as though their identities fade with each passing day. Anxiety, depression, and insomnia are common. Some inmates develop a robotic routine just to endure, moving, eating, and working without thought, as if on autopilot. A life, measured in silence. By lights out at 9 p.m., the prison returns to an eerie stillness. The day ends as it began, with the sound of doors locking and a sense of unrelenting discipline. For inmates, each day is a carbon copy of the last, designed not only to contain but to completely reshape the human spirit. If the daily routine in South Korea's prisons feels oppressive, the punishments for breaking even the smallest rule can be brutal. These aren't just warnings or minor penalties. They're designed to intimidate every inmate and send a chilling message. Obedience isn't optional, it's survival. The disciplinary cell. At the heart of the punishment system is the feared solitary confinement unit, known among prisoners as the disciplinary cell. Imagine a room barely large enough to stretch your arms, with no bed, no window, and a single dim bulb that stays on 24/7. Inmates may be forced to sit perfectly upright for hours on end. Talking is forbidden. Guards slide in sparse meals through a narrow slot. Some prisoners have reported spending days, even weeks, in these conditions, an experience that mental health experts compare to psychological torture. Physical punishments. Past and present. While South Korea has officially banned corporal punishment in prisons, former inmates and human rights groups claim that physical abuse hasn't vanished completely. There are documented reports of disciplinary drills, where prisoners must kneel for hours on hard floors, hands raised overhead, or hold painful positions that strain muscles to the point of collapse. Guards sometimes use these methods to maintain order, skirting the line between discipline and cruelty. Forced labor under threat. Labor assignments are a daily routine, but refusal or slow performance can trigger severe consequences. Prisoners who resist are often threatened with solitary confinement, loss of food privileges, or increased work quotas that border on the impossible. Some accounts describe prisoners working 12-hour shifts, stitching uniforms, or assembling electronics, with only brief breaks. The work itself isn't illegal, but the coercive pressure, backed by punishment, turns it into something far more oppressive. The cold isolation strategy. Another notorious punishment is the cold cell, a barren room kept at near freezing temperatures during winter months. Prisoners are given only thin uniforms and must endure the chill with minimal bedding. Though officials deny its use today, former inmates insist it still happens, especially for those deemed problematic or who defy orders repeatedly. Just a few hours in these icy conditions can break even the strongest resolve. Public shaming and power plays. Punishments don't always involve isolation or physical suffering. Public shaming is another tactic. Inmates who disobey are sometimes forced to bow repeatedly in front of other prisoners or scrub filthy floors while guards watch and taunt them. These acts reinforce the hierarchy and make an example out of the punished, ensuring that others think twice before stepping out of line. Psychological scars that last. The true damage of these punishments isn't always visible. Former prisoners describe nightmares, panic attacks, and a lingering fear of authority long after release. Human rights advocates argue that these practices do nothing to rehabilitate. Instead, they leave deep psychological wounds that make reintegration into society even harder. A system resistant to change. Despite international criticism from organizations like Amnesty International and the United Nations, progress is slow. Officials often downplay or deny reports, citing necessary discipline and cultural norms about respect and hierarchy. Meanwhile, prisoners continue to endure punishments that the outside world finds shocking. For inmates trapped inside South Korea's harsh prison system, survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about preserving a sense of self. Every day is a mental battle against monotony, fear, and the crushing weight of absolute control. Yet, even in such a regimented environment, prisoners find small ways to cope and, at times, quietly resist. Mental armor. Many inmates begin by building what they call mental armor. They create strict personal routines inside the already strict schedule, counting steps while pacing, repeating silent prayers, or reciting poems they remember from childhood. These small rituals give them a sense of control, a private world no guard can touch. Some practice meditation or visualize life outside the walls, imagining reunions with family or simple pleasures like walking through a crowded street. Alliances and quiet support. Despite the enforced silence, prisoners often develop subtle networks of friendship. A nod, a quick glance, or a hidden note passed under a food tray can convey solidarity. These small gestures help combat isolation. Some prisoners share extra food when they can, or exchange tiny handmade gifts, folded paper cranes, a scrap of art drawn on cardboard. Such acts, though risky, provide comfort and a reminder of humanity. Hidden acts of defiance. Resistance takes many forms, often quiet and unseen. Inmates might deliberately slow their work pace, hide forbidden notes, or refuse to bow as deeply as expected. While seemingly minor, these actions are powerful statements of identity in a system designed to erase individuality. A few prisoners have staged hunger strikes to protest unfair treatment, risking severe punishment, to demand attention from the outside world. Escape attempts and protests. Occasionally, defiance becomes bold. There are rare but dramatic escape attempts that capture headlines, digging through walls, scaling fences, or overpowering guards. Though most fail, they reveal the desperation of those who feel they have nothing left to lose. Protests inside prisons, such as coordinated refusals to work or eat, are met with swift crackdowns but sometimes draw media scrutiny and spark debates about prison conditions. The role of family and advocates. For many inmates, the biggest lifeline is contact with the outside world. Family visits, even brief and heavily monitored, offer emotional relief. Letters, though censored, bring hope and updates from home. Human rights lawyers and advocacy groups also play a critical role, filing complaints and pressuring officials when abuses occur. These outside connections remind prisoners that they are not forgotten. The quiet strength of survival. Ultimately, survival in these prisons isn't about brute strength. It's about mental resilience, small rebellions, and the will to hold on to one's identity. Each prisoner who endures another day without breaking proves that even in the most tightly controlled environments, the human spirit can resist. Global attention on South Korea's prison system has intensified over the past decade. Human rights organizations, such as Amnesty International and the United Nations Human Rights Committee, have repeatedly criticized the use of prolonged solitary confinement, forced labor, and inadequate mental health care. Their reports label these practices as violations of basic human rights, urging Seoul to modernize its approach from strict punishment to true rehabilitation. Government response and small steps. South Korea's Ministry of Justice has acknowledged some concerns, introducing limited reforms. A few facilities have increased access to counseling services and slightly relaxed visitation policies. Pilot programs in certain prisons now include vocational training meant to prepare inmates for life after release. However, these changes are incremental and often uneven across the country. Critics argue that they barely scratch the surface of deeper systemic problems, like overuse of isolation cells and rigid discipline. Public opinion. Divided. Inside the country, opinions are complex. Many citizens view tough prisons as necessary for maintaining order and deterring crime. Some even argue that harsh discipline reflects traditional values of respect and responsibility. Others, particularly younger generations and advocacy groups, call for a shift toward rehabilitation and mental health support. Heated debates play out on television talk shows and online forums, revealing a nation wrestling with the balance between justice and compassion. Legal challenges and court rulings. Several former inmates have taken their cases to court, alleging cruel and unusual punishment. In a few notable rulings, South Korean courts have agreed that certain extended solitary confinement practices violated constitutional rights. These decisions have forced the government to re-examine internal guidelines and provided momentum for activists pressing for broader reforms. Yet, enforcement remains inconsistent, and many guards continue to rely on old disciplinary habits. Technology, a double-edged sword. Ironically, the same advanced technology that powers South Korea's economy also reinforces the prison system's control. High-definition surveillance cameras, biometric checkpoints, and AI monitoring keep inmates under constant watch. While officials claim these tools enhance safety and reduce physical violence, critics argue that they deepen psychological stress and make genuine reform, focused on trust and rehabilitation, harder to achieve. The road ahead. Meaningful change will require more than policy tweaks. Experts recommend reducing reliance on solitary confinement, improving mental health care, expanding educational opportunities, and creating independent oversight bodies to hold prison authorities accountable. Whether these proposals become reality depends on sustained public pressure and political will. A final reflection. South Korea stands at a crossroads. Its prisons, once hidden from global scrutiny, are now symbols of a larger question. What is the purpose of punishment? If it is to break spirits, the current system succeeds. If it is to prepare citizens for a second chance, reform is essential. Until the nation chooses rehabilitation over fear, the chilling stories from inside these walls will continue to echo far beyond the prison gates.